The word is defined as follows: to disassemble, to lay open, to remove, to take apart, to reveal, to break down. Today, the word has a brand new meaning. To study all things of the universe, analyze their mechanisms, and expose their hidden workings. The word is barasu. From home to industrial applications, a wide range of important contributions have been made by the sewing machine. The history of the sewing machine dates back to the Renaissance, when the compass, gunpowder, and letterpress printing were invented. These three things are considered to be the world's greatest inventions. The sewing machine originated from the knitting machine invented in England in 1589. The knitting machine evolved into what we know as the sewing machine. Sewing machines have long reigned as an innovative product that is essentially a machine. In 1854, the sewing machine came to Japan. Records show that Commodore Perry, the U.S. envoy to Japan, presented a sewing machine to the rulers of Japan, the Tokugawa shogunate. In Japan, sewing machines evolved in their own ways and became highly popular. Although the sewing machine was originally from overseas, a Japanese company now boasts the world's greatest market share of industrial sewing machines. That company is the Juki Corporation. Juki developed its first household sewing machine in 1947. Their industrial sewing machines have been highly praised throughout the world. Juki manufactures approximately 2,000 types of industrial sewing machines. They're sold in 170 countries. The innovations and functions of Juki's industrial sewing machines are also incorporated in its line of compact household sewing machines. Here is a high-end household sewing machine. This new computerized sewing machine can be thought of as the ultimate household sewing machine. It's the Exceed Quilt Special. What are the hidden mechanisms that make it work? To facilitate sewing, a sewing machine needs a needle bar and hook. A presser foot holds down the fabric. New technologies have been integrated into certain mechanisms that haven't changed since the days of the treadle sewing machine. What was once the difficult task of sewing buttonholes with a household sewing machine is now a breeze. Join us on a 30-minute discovery-filled journey. In this episode, we'll expose all the secrets behind a household sewing machine in the true Barasu spirit. This is the head office of Juki Corporation in Tokyo, Japan. Naofumi Fukuba from Juki's Sewing Machinery Development Department is going to expose the inner workings of the sewing machine. He has worked on sewing machine development for 17 years, focusing on product development for 10 different models. He knows all there is to know about sewing machines. He'll be exposing the inner workings of the Exceed Quilt Special. Here are the main specs. He'll be using 15 tools, including different screwdrivers, hexagonal wrenches, and spanners.
So now I'll take apart the Exceed.
First, the top cover is removed. This is where the top thread is set. Next, the auxiliary bed. This is where the fabric lies. From this point on, he'll be using tools. Do not attempt to disassemble. This program is not intended to encourage viewers to disassemble or perform any other similar action. The manufacturer and this program shall have no liability for any action taken based on the information contained in the program. First, all the screws visible on the main body cover are removed. The different cover parts are removed one by one. Now that its shell has been removed, the Exceed looks very different. Before exposing the Exceed, let us introduce the how-tos of sewing machines to those of you who have never used one. First of all, sewing machines use more than just one thread. The thread you can see on the top side of the fabric is called the top thread. The thread you see on the opposite side of the fabric is called the bottom thread. They're both intertwined while sewing. Therefore, you must prepare the two different threads before sewing. First, set the spool. Then set the bobbin into a component called the hook. Thread it by pulling the end of the thread. The bottom thread is now ready. Next, the top thread. Arrange the thread from the spool according to the numbers printed on the main body. Lastly, you need to pull the thread through the eye of the needle. However, with Exceed, this difficult task can be done by simply pressing a button. By pulling the end of the loop, it's ready to go. Next, set your fabric and push the button. Now you're sewing. Sewing machines work by intertwining the top and bottom threads together. Let's see how a sewing machine works by looking at the internal mechanism. First, the needle bar is disassembled.
The needle moves up and down when sewing. In the Exceed, for sewing a pattern or zigzagging, the needle is also designed to move left and right.
In the Exceed, when sewing a pattern, the needle not only moves up and down, but also left and right. What kind of mechanism enables these kinds of movements?
The main motor moves the needle up and down only. The stepping motor allows the needle to move left or right.
Moving the needle bar left and right in addition to up and down allows the machine to sew complicated patterns. The needle bar unit is further disassembled.
This is the needle bar unit. It moves the needle left and right. This component is used to move the needle up and down. It's just like a pendulum.
Now, important components at the base of the machine are being removed. The hook will be disassembled. This component is called the hook. It's where the bottom thread lies. Sewing with a machine is done by intertwining the top and bottom threads. What kind of mechanism is used to intertwine these two threads? Takahiro Higa will explain the mechanism in an easy-to-understand way using a model.
This is the bobbin. This is where the bottom thread is wound. This is the fabric. And this is the top thread.
In this model, the top thread and bottom thread wound around the bobbin are simplified. The plexiglass board between them is the fabric.
First, the needle makes a loop of thread on the underside of the fabric. The loop is grabbed by the blade point of the hook. And is pulled around the bobbin. The excess thread is pulled back and up by the sewing machine's take-up lever. This is how stitches are made.
Let's take a look at the hook by itself. When the needle moves down toward the hook, the thread is caught by the blade point, the pointed part of the hook, as it completes its circuit. Next, let's take a look at what happens with the bobbin. When the needle moves down to the hook, the blade point catches the top thread. This is how a sewing machine basically works. Another important factor in the sewing process is the shape of the needle.
The back of the needle has a groove. The reason for this groove is that when the blade point hooks the thread, it must pass through a space between the needle and the thread. If the space between the needle and the thread will be very small.
If we look at the blade point, we can see it goes through a very small space created by the groove in the needle.
If I can add one more thing, it would be the role of the take-up lever. The take-up lever moves the thread up and down. It also inserts a thread in and out in coordination with the movement of the hook at the bottom.
When the rotating blade point grabs the top thread, the thread must have a certain amount of slack. The take-up lever goes down and the necessary length of thread to go around the hook is released. Then, when the needle moves up, the take-up lever goes up at the same time, pulling the thread up along with it. As a result, the stitches don't become loose and are very neat. The next component to be removed is the presser foot. The presser foot is necessary for making sure the fabric stays in place. It allows the fabric to stay flat. As a result, beautiful stitches are made. The X-seed has a unique function related to its presser foot. Sewing machines from other companies don't have this function. It's a function that sews beautiful buttonholes automatically. It's done by the button-holding presser foot. Set the button into it and put the foot in the sewing machine. Then insert the sensor pin into the sensor pin hole. A computer in the sewing machine detects the size of the button and calculates the size of the buttonhole to sew for it. In the past, you had to measure the size of the buttons by yourself and make marks for the buttonholes on the fabric. Manually sewing buttonholes is very difficult. Making a hole just the way you want it is never easy. However, using the special button-holding presser foot, you can sew buttonholes easily and accurately. After sewing the buttonhole, open it up with a seam ripper. It's as easy as pie. This button-holding presser can make uniform buttonholes on any fabric. Juki Corporation has a handicraft club. Its members enjoy making handicrafts during lunch and after work. The company's own employees love using Juki sewing machines. These highly functional machines make it easy for club members to create whatever they like.
せっかくミシンの会社ですし、自分でいろいろ作れたら面白いなと思いまして。
これもミシンでできちゃうっていうのが。
そうですね。できました。
特別なミシンじゃないとっていうわけではない。
これは全部これで作りました。
エキシードで。
はい。本当なんかうちのミシンはすごいなって思いました。
There are men in the club too.
シャツのボタン付けとかはずっと自分でやってましたんで、そういうの好きなんで、はい、エプロンとか割烹着作って、それのセットにしようと思ってミトンを作ったんですけど、
そうですね。もともと家庭用ミシンの営業ですので、ミシンを触れる方がいいっていうことで、手芸部に入ってミシンの勉強を始めました。ただですね、今はもう、ミシンを使うのがすごく面白くて、仕事でやってるというより、むしろもう完全に、私自身の趣味になっています。
The sewing machine kept running automatically during our interview. What is he making?
はい、今 T シャツの方に、ネームの方を刺繍いたしました。はい、こちらが完成品になります。
Wow, it's great. Juki Corporation has developed 2,000 types of industrial sewing machines. In Juki's head office, there is a display room with a collection of these sewing machines. The sewing machines on display here are specially designed for specific applications. Let us introduce you to these fascinating sewing machines. They differ greatly from the household sewing machines we have looked at so far. Takahiro Higa will explain. Let's first look at a sewing machine made for straight stitching. It's the most basic of industrial sewing machines.
Their biggest difference from household sewing machines is speed. Let me demonstrate. As you can see, an industrial sewing machine is very fast. It can run at 4,000 to 5,000 revolutions per minute. Household machines run at 700 to 800 revolutions per minute.
Next up is a sewing machine that sews buttons on dress shirts.
This sewing machine has a button feeder here. The bowl vibrates, driving the buttons to the top. There are triangular-shaped teeth on the top level. They can determine which is the front or the back of a button. The front of a button is concave. If a button isn't facing upward, when it gets here, it doesn't get hooked by the teeth, and it's dropped down. A sewer can sew buttons easily by setting up the fabric and using the foot switch. Only by repeating this, you can sew a lot of buttons easily, like this.
Here's a sewing machine that's specialized for button neck wrapping. The sewing machine sews buttons used for thick fabric such as coats.
I'll demonstrate.
Let's see it in slow motion. First, a button is sewn on the fabric. The first 2 holes of the button are stitched and the thread is cut. Then the next 2 holes are stitched. The thread is cut and the button is then turned on its side and its neck is wrapped with thread.
With this sewing machine, button sewing and neck wrapping can be done with only one machine.
This is an edge control seamer. It can sew 2 pieces of fabric cut with different shaped curves.
Since the human body is 3-dimensional, clothes are designed with different shaped curved pieces. However, you need a lot of skill to keep a certain seam allowance from the edge of the fabric. This sewing machine comes with sensors, like this. These sensors detect the respective positions of both the bottom and the top pieces and makes adjustments while sewing. As you can see, these 2 different pieces of fabric can be sewn with the exact same seam allowance.
Our last sewing machine is one that automatically sews hip pockets on denim jeans.
The edges of the pockets are first creased, then they're sewn into the garment. But denim doesn't hold a crease very well. This machine has a device that makes the creases. It sets the pocket onto the garment and sews it immediately. You never have to worry about edges unfolding. I'll demonstrate now.
Juki exports all kinds of industrial sewing machines to approximately 170 countries. They command 30% of world sales in industrial sewing machines, giving it the biggest market share. As for clothes, low price and high quality are not contradictory. Juki's industrial sewing machines make both possible at the same time. Even though most clothes are made outside of Japan, they are actually made by Japan.
What's left is the thread trimmer unit.
Now we return to disassembly. Finally, the automatic thread trimmer unit will be exposed. This is what's made Juki known throughout the world.
This is the automatic thread trimmer unit.
In conventional sewing machines, after you're done sewing, you must lift the needle and cut the thread with scissors. However, new sewing machines have an automatic thread trimming function. Juki first developed and patented a stable automatic thread trimming function. After you finish sewing, you can cut the thread with the push of a button. Let's take a look at the mechanism. If you push the thread trimming button, while the top thread goes around the hook, two metal bars emerge. One is a catcher and the other one is a thread trimmer catcher. The catcher grabs the top thread on a component called the top thread hook, located right next to it. Just when the hook makes a circuit, the catcher passes the thread to the thread trimmer catcher. The thread trimmer catcher pulls the thread back to cut it. Then it's beautifully trimmed. If you look at it from the side, you can see that there's a blade that cuts the thread when the thread trimmer catcher retracts.
And now, all parts have been removed from the main body.
What's left over is the frame, or the skeleton of the sewing machine.
I've completely disassembled the exceed.
There were 800 parts in all, and it took about 3 hours to remove them. With Exceed, Juki's innovations in their industrial sewing machines are brought together in this high-end household sewing machine. With such things as the buttonhole presser foot and the thread trimming function, cutting-edge technologies have been added to the tried and true sewing machine in Juki's flagship model. This is Juki's Exceed Quilt Special. Parasude, exposed at last.